Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm God's humble messenger. Today I'm here to talk about the process of and steps involved with fulfilling God's calling in your life. This video is based off the message on my website titled Fulfilling God's Calling in Your Life. I will put a link in the description below. There are also other articles on my website you should go check out with more on the way. You can find links to my social media accounts on my website. Alright, on to my message for today. You have a passion in your heart, one specific thing weighing on you. You don't know why, but you just can't seem to get it out of your mind. You try, but you just can't seem to forget about it, or let it go. Well, perhaps it's there for a reason. God often puts things on our hearts before He moves in our lives. This is when a passion, a concern, or a curiosity can become a calling, just as it did for Nehemiah. Nehemiah anguished over Jerusalem, a city he had never seen. The Babylonians had destroyed Jerusalem 140 years prior. They had taken the Jewish people captive, and at the time of Nehemiah, they were living on foreign land under the Persian Empire. In fact, Nehemiah was cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. But upon hearing about the decrepit state of Jerusalem, Nehemiah lamented, showing concern for the once great city and its people. He wept and mourned before eventually turning to God, praying about the concern and curiosity put on his heart. He could have heard about the current state of Jerusalem and brushed it off as not his problem, but he lived life with eyes open, aware of the needs of others rather than being self-absorbed. This is very important when beginning our journey, as what God puts on our hearts won't just be about us. Oftentimes, it will never be about us. So we must learn to put our own selfish ambitions aside. Having put his concern for the needs of others first, and then giving what was weighing on him to God, Nehemiah was ready to begin his journey. God began to move in his circumstances, and going to Jerusalem to help rebuild the walls would soon become Nehemiah's mission. By putting God first and praying to him, he had taken the first step toward fulfilling his calling in life. God would then provide Nehemiah with the opportunity to ask the king for leave to go to Jerusalem by putting him in the exact right place at the exact right time. It was when Nehemiah brought Artaxerxes his wine one day, looking particularly sad, that the king asked him why he was so troubled. Fear came over Nehemiah because he knew when he told the king of his concern for the city of his ancestors, it could potentially upset the king, and that could mean his life. But God was with Nehemiah and had put him in this moment because Nehemiah would need the king's permission to travel to Jerusalem and accomplish his life's calling. Nehemiah's steps to this point, his concern that had transitioned to persistent prayer, had translated into courageous action. And so he acted in accordance to what God had called him to do. Then God took care of the rest by moving the king to want to provide a solution for his cupbearer's sadness. Not only did Artaxerxes give Nehemiah permission to travel to Jerusalem, but he also gave him letters of authorization to acquire materials to complete his task and safe passage all the way to Jerusalem. God provided all of this for him. Now, Nehemiah could have taken all the credit for his success himself, attributing his victory with the king that day to his own bravery and willingness to put his life on the line to ask permission to leave, his own wisdom to ask for the letters of safe passage and provisions. But Nehemiah instead gave all credit to God. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 8, he says, "And because the gracious hand of God was on me, the king granted my requests." So Nehemiah would travel to Jerusalem and the walls would be rebuilt. But it wasn't an easy endeavor. Nehemiah had to motivate the people to work. He had to delegate tasks and responsibilities. He had to overcome his opposition, for there were those who would try to stop him in his quest, and he had to overcome obstacles in his way. But nothing and no man can stand in the way of God's plan for your life. Nothing can stop him once he started moving in your current circumstances. What he has promised you will come to fruition. The plan he has laid out for you will come to pass, especially when it is your calling that he has put on your heart and moved you to undertake. The book of Nehemiah also points out the best way to deal with the opposition you may be facing on your journey, because you will face opposition. Anything you do on behalf of God will be opposed. That is a fact. It is, unfortunately, a circumstance of the world we live in, especially with evil so prevalent in the world today. So know that you will face opposition when pursuing God's calling in your life. The best way to respond to this adversity is to remember that you are pursuing your specific task for God and know that He will give you success. When Jerusalem's walls were rebuilt, Nehemiah realized only half of his task had been completed. Simply rebuilding the walls wouldn't restore its former glory. There needed to be a revival. The people needed to return to God. And so, just as he set out to travel to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls, he set his sights on a new quest, bringing the people of Jerusalem back to God. To do this, he, as governor, gathered all the people and incorporated the help of Ezra, having him read the law of God to the people from daybreak till noon. Now, there was no guarantee that this would work, but when you are working on behalf of God for His glory, things always seem to have a way of working out. God moved the people's hearts, and a revival swept through Jerusalem. People began confessing their sins, and leaders signed a pledge of fidelity to follow God's covenant. Nehemiah had once again succeeded in his task he had been called upon by God to complete. Now, your calling might not be such a grand task as was Nehemiah's, or it could be. Either way, the steps to begin your journey in fulfilling God's calling in your life are the same. Whatever it is that God has stirred in your heart, start by praying about it. Give it to Him. Trust Him. Have patience and let Him start moving in your life. He will provide the right opportunities at the right time. Then determine your goal and visualize what steps need to be taken to achieve it. Motivate yourself, and if your assigned calling includes other people, motivate them too. Delegate tasks as needed to complete the work. Fight through and overcome any and all opposition, because there will be opposition, and remove any obstacles that pop up in your way. Just remember to include and rely on God during these two steps. Give it to Him and He will guide you through all opposition and obstacles. Finally, keep your eye on the goal and stay on course. Finish strong. Once God puts a situation on our hearts and we pursue it through intense and persistent prayer, the Lord will direct our steps and empower us. Then we can step into the circumstance and take action. The most important thing you can do along the way is stay in contact with God through persistent prayer, knowing that your efforts are backed by Him, and He is with you throughout your journey. If you do this, you will be astonished at just how much you can achieve with God by your side, backing your every step along the way. And that's my message for today. I hope you found something useful in today's message. Some encouragement, inspiration, or maybe just some comfort knowing that God is always working for your good. Please share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Also, if you have a story about how God touched your life or someone you know, email me. I would love to read it. With your permission, I may want to turn it into a video. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, that would be great, and I would love that. But I want to mention that I don't do this for the views or the likes or to get as many subscribers as possible. I started this channel and make these videos to spread God's word, to spread hope, and to inspire, to allow Him to work through me with the hope that I can reach others. If I can get just one person to dedicate or rededicate their lives to the Lord, then I've done my job. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. God bless.